Hey, what's going on, man? This is Will Z Tidwell with Skybox Conversations, man. The hoop. We talk about all things hoops, man. Everything from the Los Angeles Lakers to my favorite college team, man, the Arkansas Razorbacks, baby. Woo Pig Suey. We got a very special episode for y'all here today, man. Obviously, we're gonna cover a couple topics, right? We're gonna talk about some very interesting questions that I feel like are going on about the league, around the league that some people aren't talking about. We're gonna talk about the Lakers a little bit. We're gonna talk about some other teams that are really hot and some teams that are really not. And just ask some very interesting questions, man, and be able to just give our own, individual take on it. Man, I love this shit so much, bro. And also want to just talk about the state of the NBA because there's been so much dialogue going on around the NBA about, you know, how trash the NBA is, how great it is. People asking like, "Are you even watching the games?" Because in my personal opinion, I feel like it's a great product. If not, I wouldn't have created this platform not only to highlight the Lakers but to highlight the NBA overall. And I love the game. Every night I'm watching 4 and 5 games at a time, at a high level, man. And I'm really be able to break them down and watch them, man, and be able to just really say I love this shit. And I feel like if you're not one of those people, then stop watching, right? But we'll get to all that. We'll talk about that, man, because that's a very big topic here, obviously, as of late. But we're gonna start from the top, and we got to start with the Lakers, man. So I want to ask a very important question here: was that Laker win over the Nuggets a fluke, or is this team for real? In my personal opinion, I feel like not just because I'm biased or not just because that's my favorite team, or obviously that's what this platform is about, but I honestly do believe this team is the real deal. Now, obviously, we still have a few flaws when it comes about we talk about the lack of size or just having a true big name center that you can rely on to go get you a consistent 20 and 10 and get a couple blocks and can be an anchor on defense. Obviously, we don't have that, right? But I can say this. I can say that the way that Coach JJ Redick is coaching, the system he's putting in, the structure he's putting in, obviously putting the ball down in Luka's hand, I will say he is getting the best out of the team that he has, which he's been doing since when he had AD, had Max Christie. He found a way to get the best out of the personnel that has been given to him. So even though Jackson Hayes isn't a premier big, even though Alex Lynn is pretty bad, is a reason he's on the buyout market, obviously. Even though you got Jemison on a two-way, you got this dude Goodwin on a two-way, you got Shake Milton, like you got all these dudes that in most people's eyes would move the needle. He has found a way to get the best out majority of those dudes and then be able to pair them with his big three, and these great role players such as a Dorian Finney-Smith, a Gabe Vincent, and so on and so forth. So when you ask that question of, do I think that this Laker team in that win over the Nuggets was legit? I do think it was legit because one, it showed that the Nuggets are not as good as people think they are. Because yeah, they went on this 9-game winning streak and all of that. But if you go look at the games that they were winning, I think it was like the Wizards, the Blazers, Utah. It was like very not meaningful games. And if you get Jokic himself to come out and say, maybe they just showed us that that winning streak doesn't mean as much as we thought it did. Maybe they made us realize that if the wins that we got weren't really meaningful wins against 500 or better teams, and they weren't. And even Coach Malone had to say it, that they were just out coached. So when you talk about was this win and is this team for real? The reason I think this team is for real, not just because we have the best talent in the league, but I think the reason why this team is for real is because the combination of the talent, the grit, and the effort, and the toughness, and the strategy from the coaching. That combination is why I think this team can be for real. Because again, JJ's gonna get the best out of his players. He has 3 closers, and if the effort is there, we can beat anybody. If we drop games going forward, the last 20 something games that we got left, 30 games we got left, if and when we drop games, the things I'm going to be looking at is, was the effort there? What was the lineups like? Did we get crushed because of the lack of size? If those things happen, that's one thing. But if everybody's clicking at a high level, the effort is there. Luka's being Luka, Braun is being Braun, Austin is fitting in seamlessly, Rui is is knocking down his shots. Dorian Finney-Smith is does the intangible things he does. Vando is doing what he does. Gabe is doing what he does, and we still get our ass kicked. Then I got room to be worried. But I feel like as long as those things happen on a much as you can consistent basis, we have the chance to beat anybody any given day. I think this team is legit. Now, am I gonna go as far and say that we're gonna go win a ring this year? Now, on the last episode, I even talked about that, where I'm like, I don't think we're in a position to go win a championship per se. I think we could. I wouldn't be surprised if you can keep up this level of play. I wouldn't be surprised if we go win a ring. But it's all about matchups too. And who comes back healthy, how like those things are gonna matter as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if we went to the Western Conference Finals or went to the finals. But I wouldn't be totally disappointed if we don't. Because again, I understand that matchups are everything. You still lacking a few things. And if a coach and a team can figure out a way to expose it on a consistent basis, then you got trouble on your hands. But I have to say this. I feel very comfortable with JJ Redick at the helm when it comes to strategy, creativity, being willing to adjust, and being willing to come up with contingency plans when what the original game plan was may or may not be working. I do trust him in that regard, which again, I think was a major difference when you talk about him versus Darvin Ham, right? Being willing to make the changes and the adjustments is something that he struggled with. And you don't see that as much from JJ. And so when you talk about was that game a fluke? No, it wasn't a fluke because we were beating them from start to finish. We beat them pretty convincingly. The strategy obviously worked when you come out trying to slow down Jokic in making Michael Porter Jr. On the move jump shooter, which is not what he's great at. Jamal Murray was very uncomfortable. He was seeing bodies all night as well, blitzing him, right? Not letting them run that two-man game. I think that's legit because that's coaching, that's strategy, that's game planning. And that's something that JJ has been doing very, very, very well. And so I do think I think this team is legit. I really, really do. And I'm excited to see how it continues to unfold. And we got some very interesting matchups coming up over the next week or two that's going to continue to show us if this team is for real. But just from that sample size and Luka being able to be Luka and Brun being Brun and Austin Eaton off being an all-ball player, then having the ball in his hands when one of those or two of those dudes go to the bench. Rui shooting it at a high clip, right? Vando and Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe and Goodwin being great defensive players. This team is legit in my opinion, man. But we're gonna see. We're gonna continue to see. But in my mind, I'm taking them pretty serious, right? On the next things, man. Staying in the West, want to ask a really big question about man. I was wrong. I was wrong about Jimmy Butler and the Warriors, man. Now I said that I do think he's gonna make them better. I said that. I never said he was gonna, we're gonna still suck or anything like that. But when he talk about championships, that is where I still don't agree with that part. That they're gonna just go win rings like that. I don't see that part necessarily happening. But you have to take it into account how much better he has made that team from the amount of free throws that they're able to get now, the rest Steph is able to get because how many times he's at the free throw line, 9 damn near 10 times a game. He's getting 10 free throws a game. That's great for Steph being able to get a rest as much as he runs around on the court, which is a great point that was made earlier on First Take and also on NBA Today. Um, taking some of that scoring load off of Steph to where he's not the sole focus of everybody's game plan anymore. Because if you remember, his life was a living hell when it came to getting easy shots and easy buckets, and everything was so contested. Because outside of Steph, who do we really got to respect like that? You don't have a Jordan Poole. You don't have a Clay. Andrew Wiggins is so up and down. Baginski and all of them dudes up and down, right? But now you got Jimmy. You got to spread. They spreading the floor. Jimmy's great off the ball. He's a pretty damn good passer. His IQ is there. He's a smart ball player. He's a very methodical ball player, very thought out, long and drawn out. Him and Draymond seem to be clicking in regards to that and the toughness that they bring. He's just bringing elements to this team that they didn't have before. But it goes on to ask a bigger question of how far can they go, and is this sustainable? I would not be surprised because especially of how mucked up the standings are. And let's take a look at those real quick because I already had these up for some other stuff that we're gonna kind of talk about later on in the show. But when you talk about how mucked up the standings are, so in the West, you got Golden State right now at number 9. So they're in the play-in currently. And then look at the teams around them. Sacramento, they can beat Sacramento. They can stay ahead of Sacramento. I think they will stay ahead of Sacramento. The Suns stink. We're gonna talk about that because I don't understand what that happens. Wemby is done. San Antonio is out of the question. These three completely stink. It's crazy to see the Pelicans down here so far, knowing they got Zion. That's crazy to see. But look, Dallas is dealing with injuries. Minnesota has 3 starters out. They're talking about them potentially coming back. I think Sean was mentioning them potentially coming back soon. But then I don't think they are very, very good, even with those dudes in, if I'm being honest. Obviously, Ant is Ant, and they might make it to the playoffs, but I think Golden State could beat Minnesota. And you talk about the Clippers. We still don't know who they are for real, like what that's going to look like. So what I'm saying is for them to get to that 6th seed, and maybe even the 5th, because I think they could beat a young Houston team when we talk about Jimmy and Draymond and Steph. The West is wide open to get to the 5 or the 6 seed. And when you talk about how far they can go, I think they can get to the playoffs without having to go to the play-in. First of all, I think that's possible for them. It's going to take a lot of winning, but they 5-1 since Jimmy got there. Now, no, I think they're going to go 25-5 per se or some shit like that. Not necessarily, but I do think they can get to that 5 or 6 seed. So let's just say in a perfect world, based on these standings, that Golden State was right here at the 6th seed right now. Let's just say this is how it was, right? Let's switch Golden State and the Clippers, though. And so you got Oklahoma and Dallas, Memphis and Minnesota, Denver and Golden State. In my mind, I want to say, damn, Golden State can't beat Denver. But with the way Jimmy got them playing, even though, man, Steph and them still need a big, and I made a tweet about this. I said that I was wrong about Jimmy, and if you go get Steph and them a big, we having a totally different conversation about championship standings, about championship contention. If you go get Steph the big that he needs, like a true big, right? And you're talking about dudes like Nas Reed being a free agent potentially this upcoming summer, that's big. That's a big thing to keep your eye on. That's a big thing to keep your eye out on for the Lakers as well, because we may have the money to go after a dude like that for real with all the expiring contracts that we got coming up. Nas Reed, Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, like that. That's a hell of a team in my eyes. So that's something to keep your eye out on. But if you go get Steph the big he needs, I think they can beat anybody. But even when you talk about playing Denver, if this playoff started today and they played Denver, I think they could give Denver a run for their money. I wholeheartedly think that they could give Denver a run for their money and make life very hard for Denver. And that's just me. But is it sustainable? I do think it's sustainable. I do think Jimmy is going to help them win a lot of games. I think he's continuing to make Steph life easier. And they got how many games they got left? They played 57, so they got 25 games left. I can see them going like 15-10, 16-9. I can see that because I mean, who are they playing, right? That's the other question. Who are they getting ready to finish playing for these last few games? And I think that'll help us, narrow it down even more. You know what I'm saying? Who are they getting ready to play? So they got who they got coming up, man? They got all right. So they got Charlotte, Orlando, Philly, Charlotte. Them all 4 dubs right there. New York, the way New York playing, they can beat New York. Brooklyn, Detroit. That's gonna be tough. Detroit pretty damn good. That's gonna be a good game. But they can beat Detroit. They can beat Portland. They can beat Sac. They can beat New York. They can beat Denver. They can beat Milwaukee. Gonna be tough. Like they schedule really weak as hell. They got us. They got Houston. They got Memphis. That's gonna be a couple tough games. Milwaukee gonna be pretty tough. Playing New York twice, they probably will lose one of them maybe. But like if you really look at them games, they really can win 15, 16, 17 of these games. No bullshit. That they really got one of the easier schedules in the league just from an eye test. Now I don't know that from stat wise if they got one of the easiest schedules remaining, But just from an eye test and looking at it and just knowing who those teams are, I would not be surprised if they go 15-10, 16-9, 17-8. I think this is very sustainable, and I think even next year they'll be even scarier with a full training camp under their belt. Again, you go get a big. Don't let them get a Naj Reid. Don't even let them get a Vu. I feel like you get a Vucevic, that's still scary, even though he older. Um, I think it's sustainable, man. I think I would not be surprised if they get into the first round of the playoffs as a 6 seed or even a 5 seed. Maybe get put out the first round, but maybe make it to the second and probably get put out in the second for sure. But I could definitely see them going to the first or second round. But I can see that. I can see that. Jimmy Butler has completely turned up Golden State. Again, staying in the West. I've been noticing something real weird about John Morant lately. Something that I was like, well, maybe he's just getting back acclimated. I'm not gonna overreact or anything when I say these things, and hopefully nobody's like takes this and like blows this out of proportion when I say what I'm about to say. Um, but has John Morant's long absence, cost him a spot as the league's young top star? Has him being gone long, he was doing all those things, has that kind of made him like no longer the number one option on the Grizzlies? If that makes sense what I'm saying? Because when I was watching the game last night when they were playing the Cavs, it just felt like, yeah, he was making some big buckets. I remember he got to, he made some tough shots. He did some, he was doing some really good things. But then it was like when I was watching the game, bro, and I'm looking at the stats, I pulled them up before we got ready to talk about it today. So like, look at the averages, bro. Like just even live. Then the year before that, he was averaging 26. And the year before that, he was averaging 27. This year, he's averaging 20.5 of his career that he's averaged since the bubble. Like, think about that right now. And I get it. It takes time to get back acclimated and to get back into the rhythm and flow of things when you've been gone so long. And like you said, Triple J is an all-star. And he seems to kind of have taken like command of this team. But Big Perk said something very interesting the other day. He said, or yesterday before the Cavs and the Memphis game, he said the only way the Memphis Grizzlies are going to go far is if Ja Morant is being your number one option consistently doing the things he was doing. He was averaging 27 and 25 and 26, right? In closing games and hitting tough shots over the Warriors, in those tough series when they was like kind of battling when Warriors were still the Warriors. Like, if Triple J is your number one option, as great as he is, defensive player, can go get you 30, 40, can shoot the three. If he's your number one option, no disrespect to him, how far can he take you? How far can he take you? I don't. I say this like I say it like this: if my Lakers saw the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round, and John Morant is going to continue to play like a number two option and take the back seat to Bane and to Triple J a lot, and you're going to be a 20-point scorer, and that's all you're going to be. Which in the playoffs, people elevate their game, but you might be still a 22-point scorer, and Triple J is getting all the touches, and he's the number one option, and it seems that way. I have no fear in my heart. I have no fear in my heart. I'm being real with you. I have no fear in my heart. I really don't have no fear in my heart. Even if John Morant is being a 27-point game scorer, I'm still not scared. But it's like I definitely don't fear nothing when it comes to the Grizzlies. If Triple J is going to be your best player night to night, he going to win you some games. He going to get you to the postseason. Obviously, they going to win some games. I think they number what Memphis is number what 3 in the West right now. I think they are. I think they like number 3 in the West. Let's see. I think they are, bro. I think they like number 3 in the West right now. So it's like, yeah, I know you're gonna win some games, but it's like, how far can that really go? And so I just don't know if it was just him being out for so long, or if it's him deferring too much because he had these two other stars on his team now, or I don't know. I don't. And then you hear these rumblings about him potentially getting traded, maybe. Saying how when Luka got traded, nobody's safe, which is understandable. Nobody should be safe now, and nobody will be safe. You talk about trading Kevin Durant and all these things. We're gonna talk about that too. But it's just like it's just weird to see. It's weird to see Ja Morant only being a 20 point per night type of guy when he's so much more than that. If you look at the numbers, even Austin Reeves is having a statistically better year than him, right? Which is why I say Austin Reeves could go to another team, in my opinion, and be a number one option. Not because of just that, but because Austin Reeves is being consistent night to night. Even when he's having a bad game, he's still giving you 25. You see what I'm saying? And so that's what I'm saying. And people argue with me about saying Austin Reeves could be a number one option because they're saying, so you telling me he's up there with the Jalen Brunsons and the Edwards and the the Shays and the Jason Tatums of the world. And I said, a lot of them dudes, when you come to number one options, are born to be number one options. Some dudes are built and crafted to become a number one option. Jalen Brunson wasn't a number one option, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was not a number one option when he first came in the league. He was traded for Paul George because they thought he was just a movable asset, not even realizing what they had. Jalen Brunson was sitting on the bench before, I forgot who got injured on the Mavs. I don't know if that was Hardaway Jr. or somebody got injured key for the Mavs that was in a rotation heavy at first. And he brought in Jalen Brunson, and him and Luka became this two-headed monster, and they didn't want to pay him. So Jalen Brunson went to New York and got a bag. Jalen Brunson wasn't a number one option. And so that's why I say I think Austin Reeves could easily go to another team if he was more worried about money and be a number one option for somebody, or become a heavy number two option on a night-to-night basis. I wholeheartedly believe that. But I do believe it's a combination of Ja Morant deferring too much to his teammates because you have Bane and because you have Triple J and because you got Edie now. But at the same time, it still got to feel like it's your team. Just like when we used to say Bron saying this AD team when AD was with the Lakers, but it was so many times where it never felt like it was AD team. It don't feel like it's Ja Morant team. It don't. It don't to me, and it just doesn't. It just doesn't. And I gotta write that down, man, because I gotta talk about that when I do some promos, man. That's so good. That's so good. But let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to the next topic. Let's move on to the next topic, man. Could the Pistons actually make the playoffs and make some noise? I think right now Philly is, for some reason, Philly is current. I mean, excuse me, not Philly. Detroit is currently sitting at. Detroit is currently sitting at the 6th seed, so they are like literally right there on the last spot in the play-in tournament. Not having to be in the play-in tournament. They got the Magic right on their heels, who are still missing Jalen Suggs and need him back desperately. They have won 6 games in a row. Cade Cunningham is a first-time All-Star and playing like it. You got Michael Beasley, who is now one of the leading fucking three-point shooters in the league. But when he's with the Lakers, he couldn't hit the side of a fucking barn. That's a whole nother conversation. Man, you got the vets like Tobias Harris, and you got Tim Hardaway Jr. You got the young guns, you got Holland, you got the Asor Thompson. I think is the one that's the twin that's there. Like you got you got a damn good coach in JB Bickerstaff. Like, so I think they can definitely make the playoffs and even make the first round of the playoffs very interesting because again, in a perfect world, playoffs started today as these are the 8 teams. It would be Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, Pacers, Bucks, Pistons, Magic, and the Heat. So the Pistons would be playing the Bucks because Cavs, Heat, Celtics, Magic, Knicks. No, it'd be the Knicks and the Pistons. With the way the Knicks playing. The way the fucking Knicks are playing, the Pistons fuck around and can get the Knicks. I ain't gonna go that far yet, but I feel like they'll make the Knicks work. It'll go 7 games. The Knicks ain't gonna walk out of there and sweep them. I tell you that shit. So I do definitely think they can make some noise, man. And I think it'll be a very interesting to see K in the playoffs because I think he is made for moments like that. He a star, man. And what did he say last night? He said, "Don't touch me. I'm sizzling." That's funny as hell. That's funny as hell. Um, I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna make that my last topic. Why do the Suns stink so bad, and where do they go from here? I think it's a combination of things, man. I think the big three thing hasn't worked. Um, I think they don't have enough defense. Number one, they don't. You don't have anybody on that team that can just say, "Hey, this is my best defender. Go lock in." I think they still haven't quite addressed the big situation the way that they should. I mean, you went and got Nick Richards. You try to blame it all on Nurkic, and I don't think Nurkic was necessarily the main problem. I don't think he wasn't helping. But I don't think he was the main issue. Nick Richards hasn't done much. Who else you got? You got Plumlee. He hasn't done much. And I'm gonna say this, man. This is gonna be very controversial. KD is one of the greatest of all time. But what I'm starting to feel about KD is that even with all his greatness, it doesn't always result to winning. And since he has left Steph, even before he went to Steph, if you check the numbers and you check the just the stats and the history, even when he has great games, great series, great moments, very rarely does it result to wins. And I think this team is no differently because again, you don't have enough defense around Booker, KD, and Beal. Beal doesn't play defense. Beal has lockjaw what the Suns can do because of his no trade clause, which is why you consider trading KD, even though you didn't want to probably do that. You rather get rid of Beal, but you fuck around and gonna make Booker not want to be there no more. They don't have a lot of wiggle room to do much. You know what I'm saying? Which is why you want to get rid of a KD because you don't have the assets that you need to really make some moves. You wanted Jimmy, and Jimmy is thriving right now in Golden State. Like he could have really helped this team with a lot of the things they lack: the toughness, getting easy buckets, being able to play defense. Like you don't have those things, and I think that's part of the problem. Um, they just lacking some of the key things you need: a true big, getting easy buckets, being able to play defense, being able to close games. And it's like, damn, you already fired Frank Vogel, like he was the problem. How many other things can you continue to blame it on before you look at the roster and just say the roster just isn't good? It just doesn't make sense. How long before you finally go ahead and say that, James Jones? The team just isn't good. And that sucks, man, because we really thought that the Suns were going to make some noise this year, man, but they stink. They stink. They boo boo. They are boo boo cheese. Boo boo cheese. Another team that's being very disappointing. Obviously, they're not nowhere near as terrible as the Suns. I think the Knicks are like number 3 in the East, but that difference and that gap between number one, this Cavs, number two, the Celtics, and number three, the fucking Knicks is like night and day. The Knicks are not on the same level as those first two teams, and the Knicks are 0-7 against the East top teams. Are they not as good as we thought? And what's wrong with them? Um, I think it's a number of things with them as well. I think they've shot themselves in the foot when you gave up all of them goddamn assets to go get Mikal Bridges. I was very shocked that you gave up all of that to go get him. I believe he is a great player, one of the best role players in the league, a premier defender, 3-and-D dude, and which is what's popular in the league, which is why I understand giving up some stuff for him. But the package they gave up for him, that's what you would have thought that Luka would have went for. That's what you thought that like you know what I'm saying? Like De'Aaron Fox didn't even go for all of that. You dig what I'm saying? And I feel like De'Aaron Fox is more of a franchise player you build around than Mikal Bridges, if I'm being real. And so when you talk about them not being as good as we thought, or why they aren't as good, they kind of shot themselves in the foot because they have no depth. He used so many assets to get Mikal Bridges that he couldn't bring on any key bench pieces for real. They have no depth on the bench. They have no real defensive anchor. That's why you're trying to get Thomas Robinson back because you need him drastically right now, right? You want to get Cat back to playing at the 4 because he getting bumped and bruised up having to guard these big files, kind of like the situation AD was in. And then you got scoring between Jalen Brunson and Cat, but even in that, the teams you talking about in the top in the East, they got scoring too. But can you stop somebody? Do you have enough bigs to stop somebody? Then you got the Cavs and the Boston coming in with some of the best benches, and what the same starting five was doing that your starting five can do. When your starting five go sit down, Boston and Cleveland keep on rolling, and the Knicks can't seem to do that, and they getting blew the fuck out, you know, in the first quarter of games, down by 20 to the Celtics, down by 20 to the Cleveland the other day. Like they just getting their ass whooped, and it's not even close. And so I think it's the bench. I think it's just the defensive effort. I think it's sometimes the defensive schemes. I think it's Tibbs running his team into the ground, which is why they always hurt when it comes playoff time. And I think they overpaid for OG and for Mikal Bridges. And I'm being honest, OG and Mikal Bridges have not performed to the top level that you would think that they would for all that you gave up for them. And that's just me. I don't care what you say. You can say that, oh, they doing this and they doing that, and they not performing to what you gave up for them. They not doing enough. They not doing enough. I don't give a fuck what you talking about. And last but not least, man, there has been so much dialogue lately about just the state of the NBA. Is the NBA a good product? You know, you hearing so many people, bagging on it. Every time you turn on a TV, you see Charles Barkley talking about the NBA. You see Draymond on All Star Weekend talking about the NBA. You see all these old heads talking about it in a negative light, and it makes you wonder: do you really love hoops for real, or are you a hating ass individual? Because it's like, if you're really watching the games, you will see, like, even though the game has changed and evolved, yes, they're shooting more threes. Yes, it's a lot more, like spaced out, get busy ISO type of stuff. Like, yes, it's a lot of that. It's a lot more flashy. It's a lot faster. You know, there isn't as much defense as there once was. Yes, the offensive player gets a lot more calls than what they used to get. We get all of that. But if the game doesn't evolve and it stays the same from 30 years ago, but wouldn't we still be complaining about that too? And then this is self-explanatory. When you talk about somebody like a Draymond, you're saying that the new All-Star format sucked. But fam, part of the reason he even having to do all this exploratory, trying different shit, is because when you did the normal format, East versus West, y'all went out there and made the shit a layup line. And now we like, this shit boring. So he got to get creative. And he was really on to something with the new format. It was just the little things. You didn't make the game long enough. It was too many commercials. It was too many bits when it should have been more ball playing. Like, if you fixed them, the format actually would have been a hit. But the question becomes, and my dude Kenny Beecham said it best. He said that we're the on air personalities that can come onto the TV and come online and have big followings and have big platforms that talk about the game in a positive light. We don't like Reggie Miller. We talk shit about Reggie Miller and his broadcasting and all of that stuff, but you can tell he loved the game, right? When you hear some of these dudes, you hear Doris Burke, when you hear some of these people, when you hear Malika Andrews, when you hear Big Perk, when you hear Stephen A. Smith, like when you hear Shannon Sharp and some of these online personalities and on-air personalities talk about the game, they love the game. They're evolving with the game. And it sounds like a lot of people that keep talking shit about it are so stuck in the past, or sound a little bit bitter and like they missed the game, and that they're not willing to adapt with the times. And that's in any business. Half of these dudes have businesses with what I don't get is that if you don't rebrand yourself, if you don't adapt, if you don't change, if you don't grow and change the game with the new audiences that are coming along or they're getting younger and younger, then you're going to die. The brand dies. The NBA becomes irrelevant. And people think the brand is becoming irrelevant. And I couldn't agree more. I think it's in a great place, man. I mean, I couldn't disagree more. I think it's in a great place. When I'm watching those games night to night, even certain games like that you wouldn't expect to be great, like even last night, I'm watching the Pistons and the Hawks. It's a shootout. It was a great game. Cade and Trae Young are going at it. Now, this is the only downside that I do feel like needs to be fixed. You got to figure out a way to make sure stars are playing more often, whether that's less games, whether that's whether that's less games or that's just finding a way to inspire them to play more and more fines. I don't fucking know. But like that does suck because for instance, I did go to a game. I went to OKC in the Bucks. I'm excited. I'm ready to see Shay. I'm ready to see Shay. I'm ready to see Jalen Williams. I'm ready to see Chet. Now Chet was hurt. Granted, I think J Dub just set out. Shay did play, but besides Shay, it was just Hardenstein, Wiggins, and that was it. Isaiah Joe played. Um, but Giannis didn't play. Dame didn't play. Brooke Lopez didn't play. And I'm like, damn, we paid all this money, traveled down here, came to boring ass OKC because they want shit to do. And the main people you came to see didn't play besides Shea. I'm like, damn. So that does suck when a hardworking person has paying this money to go watch a game and the main people don't even play. That does suck. But outside of that, when the dudes do play and the people you were expecting to play, it's a great product. And I think people got to get out of that old school mindset and realize that the game is really in a great place if you actually watch the games and know basketball and give it a fucking chance. And if you see it's an issue, instead of bashing it on national television, how about go to David Stern how about go to Adam Silver personally and say, hey man, I love this, but can we fix this? And then the crazy thing is a lot of the dudes that's bashing the NBA, some of them are still in the NBA. And some of them are old heads that they're retired, or some of them are ones that got kicked out of the league. Like for instance, Brandon Jennings talking about Jason Tatum as one of the softest superstars of the face of the league. No, he just handle his business and go home and don't do all the extra rah-rah. He don't do no fighting. He ain't losing no money. He not losing no money on fines and giving up his money to texts and fighting people and shit. He gonna bust your ass, they gonna win, and they go home. Now, yes, they are boring to watch sometimes. Yes, they do shoot a lot of threes. Yes, he does shoot himself in the foot with the way he plays sometimes. All of that can be true, but to call him one of the softest superstars in the league when he just really be chilling and don't be doing all that extra rah-rah shit and like keeping his money in his pocket, I disagree with. I wholeheartedly disagree with. Now, kind of on that thing about injury, something I forgot to mention real quick. This is the type of shit that does make the league hard to watch sometimes. This is the only thing I've talked about with the injuries or with people sitting out. Joel Embiid's future. Should he shut it down for the season? He's been consulting with doctors, talking about how he may need another surgery on his knee to be right because you can just watch him and tell he isn't right. He can't play defense. He can't slide his feet. He can't. He not in there banging around because he probably scared he gonna get hurt. Um, there was even talks where Stephen A. Smith posed the question: should Joel Embiid consider retiring before he's like put in a position where he can barely walk or some shit? And that's a real question you got to ask, man. Should Joel Embiid retire? Because it's getting hard to watch him be out there and not playing to his full potential or being on the sideline so much where he never plays. Like, can you think about that? He's played 850 something games and has missed 450 something. You missed over half of your games in your career because of injuries. And we kind of knew this coming in that you were injury prone. You limped into the league. We knew that already when you come from Kansas. But I don't think anybody realized it would be this bad. But he's a big dude too, though. I don't know, man. I don't know, but it is hard to watch, and it does suck when you see Philly versus Boston, and you expecting Joel Embiid to play, and then you find out the day before or the day of he's not gonna play. You find out Kawhi Leonard go out there and give you 40 points in the playoffs in the game one, and then game two come back he ain't playing, and we don't even know why. Like shit like that, be like, damn, all right, that do suck. But just overall, where the game is, when everybody especially is healthy, I think the game is in a beautiful place, a beautiful, beautiful place. And I couldn't disagree more with some of the takes that you're seeing from some of these old heads around the league. And if you can't appreciate the Jokic's and the Giannis's and the Stephs and the LeBrons and the Anthony Edwards and the Shades of the world and the Jason Tatum's and the Browns and these dudes of the world, you haven't evolved and came up with the times. You're still expecting a 90s, early 2000s product when it's a totally different game. And I've watched so many intriguing videos from other creators or other people that cover the NBA or just talk about the league the way this platform does. Where if you go look at the history, the NBA was dealing with some of the same problems back then: viewings and lack of viewership. People not being interested, the All-Star Weekend sucking, the dunk contest sucking. They were dealing with the same shit, but they had to evolve. They had to change. They had to adapt. And again, if your brand doesn't do that, then it doesn't change. And so that's really some of the main things I really wanted to cover for this episode, man. I could go on and on about this, man. I feel like this is a great place to stop before I really get to rant, man. You know how much I love this game. I really appreciate y'all tuning into another episode of Skybox Conversation where we talk all things hoops, especially about my favorite two teams. I love y'all so much. Until the next episode, be sure to like, subscribe to this video, and peace. Let's get it.